live.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of One Bite at a Time. I'm Emory.
And I'm still Josh.
And we are here to talk together, build happier, healthier lives through making changes through our diets, to our discipline, to our minds, tackling the challenges one bite at a time. Last episode, we talked a little bit more about Josh's growth toward a new diet, and we'll check in on Josh. How's that diet going for you?
It's been going wonderful, except for the fact that I moved, and during the move it fell apart a little bit, but it's getting back on track. So I would say right now I'm about 2 out of 3 meals vegetarian. Maybe one of those every once and again vegan. I don't intentionally do vegan yet, just simply because it's just a lot to think about, and I kind of already have enough on my plate as is.
Yep.
And then moved, and our new house did not have a refrigerator in it, so I didn't. So we were in a house with no refrigerator for like 2 days, and I was just like, this is a lot to think about. So I was just eating whatever there was for takeout, and that was that. So we have a refrigerator now.
It's hard. Making changes is hard, and that's the whole point of this.
Yeah. I had this same pattern in my life. Like, one of the things that I always think about, like, to do things for yourself, like, you kind of hack your brain and you kind of figure out how you work, how your brain works, how you work. And I did this when I was quitting smoking. So I smoked cigarettes or chewed tobacco for almost a total of like 12 years. And it was just one of the most difficult things in my life to quit, because it was just like so easy to do. And so, like, that's one of the reasons I compare it to that, because it's an unhealthy habit that I don't want to do, that has a very, like, pretty low impact on me. You know, it's easy to do, and like, if I smoke, like, I don't immediately like get kicked in the face or something, or I don't immediately get cancer or have a doctor explain to me the cost of this in my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would smoke, and then I'd just be like, oh man, I don't want to do this, you know. And then, like, it would just be like just this thing, and like I'd have to find a way to replace it. And that's why, like, I like Judd Brewer's, like, you know, discussion. Don't want to take us too far back, but our first episode we talked about Judd Brewer and the way that he deals with addiction. But yeah, the substitution, which was everything in my life, like having the ability to like cook my own food, be in control of the diet, that went out the door. And then,
Yep.
like, the willpower, which was like, I'm stressed about moving. When I was a kid, we moved a lot, and it was really stressful when we moved. And so, like, now
Yep.
moving kind of makes me feel really bad. I don't know why. I love moving. I live in China. Like, I you know, I obviously, like, I love moving,
Moving's
but like,
easy here.
yeah, but actually moving makes me feel really bad. I like change, but actually moving makes me feel really bad. And so, yeah, it was just like some of those things that were comfortable, like pizza and hamburgers, they just happened. So.
When we grew up, we moved several times, and I think in college, at one point I moved something like 11 times in 3 years or something.
That is painful.
And we always associated pizza with that. And so
Yeah.
oh, we move in, you had pizza and beer, or pizza just and soda as a kid. And so I get that, and you slide back into those habits. But that's where we're with today, is that we want to talk about community, and the support, and the reinsurance and the pressure, in the good way, that we get from community, from the people around us, to change, to make the changes that we want, to align our values and our actions, to be the people that we really want to be, and do the things that we really want to do. So we'll get into that later. But for now, bite of the day.
All right. So our bite of the day, Emory, I'm going to let you start this one out.
What is our bite of the day today, Josh?
Our bite of the day is talking about goals, and that is something that I was struggling with this week. One of my goals was don't eat meat, and I dropped the ball on it. Man, I don't particularly, I don't think guilt is a good emotion. Like I don't think it's a useful emotion, you know? So I don't feel guilty
It's
about it.
it's working right now.
No, I don't feel guilty about it, but I do feel like, well, I feel the same way I felt when I first was like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. And then I actually went and did it. It was like, yeah, this is who I am. I need to make these decisions and then just do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Um,
Okay.
but
So then, yeah. So our bite of
making
the day is
goals
goals.
is making goals. Yeah, and this is something there's an article, there's a scientific journal article about this. A lot of the
Link below. We'll be linking it below.
Oh yeah, we will be linking that below. A lot of the research that comes from like goal setting comes from the medical community, and then some of the other research comes from the psychology community. And the medical community has like a really, I think, a really interesting take on goal setting, because the medical community approaches this as like, you have a smoker and you're like, hey, you need to quit smoking, you have lung cancer, like you're gonna die. And some of those people smoke themselves until they die. Or you have someone who's diabetic who has to make dietary changes, and some of those people don't, and they pay the consequences. And so like the medical community approaches that in a really interesting way. One of the ones that we read came from that perspective, and that one actually ended up similar in some respects to the way that Judd Brewer talks about addictions, which I thought was interesting. Which was, if you have a goal, you have to like analyze your intrinsic motivation for that goal. Whereas Judd Brewer talks about like your willpower, and like your
Mhm.
motivation and your willpower are kind of um, linked. I was going to say intrinsically linked, but I didn't want to keep using the word intrinsic
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Um, but um, yeah, I really enjoy this. This was the article is called "Why We Don't Just Do It," and the full title is "Understanding the Intention Behavior Gap in Lifestyle Medicine." And lifestyle medicine is like, you have someone who has diabetes. They have diabetes because of their lifestyle, because of the food that they're eating, the way that they're living, how sedentary they are, and those sorts of things. So um they identified four key things, which was motivation, the trigger, the response, the capacity, and then the one that goes with the capacity was also then the progress. I'm sorry, the process. And Judd Brewer breaks that down as into three, which is the trigger, the behavior that you do that you want to stop, in this case being an addiction, and then the reward. So kind of see a little bit of the difference between psychology and the
Lifestyle
medical
medicine.
community. Yeah. So they're looking at like what people are actually doing rather than like what's going on in your head. But yeah, what really was interesting about this, I'm not gonna go through the entire thing, was much more so the intrinsic motivation people had is a really, really big deal. And then having a community also really, really, really help people both in building intrinsic motivation and actually like achieving the goal. And so then we
Yeah.
had the two other articles which talked about much more so goal setting and goal achieving, not necessarily from a medical standpoint. So, did you want to talk about that one?
Yeah. So the other article is based upon the idea that the people that you tell about your goals influence how well you're able to achieve them. And so if you tell people whose opinion you really care about what you're going to do, you're more likely to do it. If you care what your partner or your parents or your coach think, and then you say, hey, this is my goal for the thing, you're more likely to do it than if you're talking to that colleague you don't really like at the water cooler, and you're like, yeah, so I'm gonna learn Chinese and I'm gonna quit smoking. And they're like, cool, good for you, man. And then why should you care what they think? You don't. And so this has been studied to some extent, and it also makes sense that this is how we interact as social creatures. We care about the people around us, and so when we're setting goals, it's important that we tell people, but then that the people that we tell are people that we care about impressing, or we care about holding us in esteem. That we are people that are true to our word and committed and consistent. And these are all important characteristics for social species like human beings, where we have to rely on other people to accomplish things. We can't do anything alone. And so, as the saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So changing yourself, changing the world, whatever you're changing, you want to do it with other people, with support. We're doing this podcast together. We're talking to people. You're listening, you're watching. We're trying to build a community where people support each other, push each other to be consistent with their values, and to be what they want to be, who they want to be, change themselves, change the world by changing themselves, changing ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm smiling while you're talking about the goal setting and telling people that you respect. And I think this is also why when you get married, you usually do it in front of a crowd. It's like we're making a goal here, and we're going to tell everybody we respect. So
Yeah.
you're much more likely to stick to that goal then.
Yeah, a
Um,
social pact,
yeah, no,
publicly
and
made. Yeah.
I think, a lot of times these kind of some of these academic studies are kind of in hindsight a little obvious, but at the same time, they really do help you when you actually are like, okay, I need to do stuff. I need to get stuff done. I need to make these things happen. And I think that, we all get a little busy. We all get a lot of things that are going on in our lives. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to make this goal. And then, 3-4 weeks or a month later, you're like, oh, why didn't I get that done? And I think that, like, one of the books that helped me the most was like the checklist method.
Mhm.
Like, that's something I still do to this day, is like I make a checklist of all the little things I need to do. And that's just like that's something too, like when I want to stay accountable, I put my goal down, I write it down, and then I tell somebody, hey, like, I'm gonna get this done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I've been going.
just recapping then there, having your motivations, understanding yourself, what your goal is, why you want to have it, what you want to achieve, and then writing it down, so that it's set in stone or in ink, or pixels, but so that you see it, it's consistent. It's a form of being public and transparent with it, and then being public again, building that community, telling someone both to hold you accountable toward achieving that goal, toward maintaining that consistent behavior, but to also support you when you are tired, when things fall through, when you need help with these other things, so that we can achieve these goals and we don't have to make excuses or to lapse in the things that we want to do.
And I think that's a good transition for call out corner. So I think we already called myself out for some of my lapses. The one positive I'll take away from that is, if you're calling yourself out for doing something, at the very least, making changes will put you back where you belong. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna work on putting myself back where I belong. And speaking of, there's a little plug for something that you told me about. But I'd ordered it anyhow. Do you remember that tempeh that you sent
Yep.
me? Yeah.
Yep.
Found out it's got B12 in it. It's fortified, and I found 3 recipes with it that are fantastic. So tempeh is my new favorite food.
And then you don't have to take your B12s, B vitamin supplements. So that's hard to beat.
Well, yeah. Taobao canceled my order for B12 vitamins, and I still have to figure out why. They said something about you have to have a Chinese national identity card to order
I
it.
have I have a link that doesn't need that. I'll send it over
Okay.
to you.
Okay.
But so
Okay.
call out corner, our next segment, just a short one today, but just a place where we want to try and build that accountability culture, call out culture where if we say something wrong, if we forgot to say something, if we messed up in any way, comment, tell us, let us know, and we want to have this space to respond to that. So there was a couple of books that were mentioned last time that we now know and will provide to you. We'll link them below as well. But what are the books we forgot last time, Josh?
Oh no. Oh no. Well, we had one book which I do know. And that book is by the wonderful Melanie Joy. She is a PhD, and the book is titled "Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows." And that is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful book on, well, exactly those three questions. So, it's about our species interaction with animals and why we feel justified to kill, eat, and use them. But then when people kill and eat dogs, we have this like sense of revulsion, or we have this sense of like anger.
Yeah,
Except in some parts where that's a part of their culture, and like even the parts
yeah,
where it's part of people's culture, other people are like, well, I don't do that, and I think it's terrible, but it's their culture, so no worries. And then it's just
yeah,
like, so
yeah.
yeah. Anyhow,
Okay.
the other book, I completely forgot which one it was. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to the episode to figure it out.
There was only one book. Sorry,
Oh, okay, good,
Josh.
good.
Uh, then our next part, we had some questions. Who is our audience here for One Bite at a Time? And I think this is a good opportunity for us to just be very clear about this. Again, we mentioned a little bit in the beginnings of the episodes. Hey, we're talking to people who are wanting to make change. But Josh and I were talking earlier, and he said very clearly who we're trying to reach, who we think really we're trying to talk to. And so if you could just give that to us one more time.
So my heart in this project here comes from being a very, very, very angry 20-something-year-old. And then just devouring a bunch of terrible books and getting into a bunch of really awful communities, and just wishing and wishing and wishing there was a community like the one I'm trying to build. So one, we're not a dogmatic community. We have
Yep.
ideas. We want to be accountable. We want to say things that are scientific and backed up. But two, we don't want to be an oppressive force in anybody's life. So the audience here specifically is anybody who's I would say some like above 20s. Anybody who's young is of course more than welcome, but I'm trying to speak to people who are a little bit older, a little educated. Not to say they have a college degree, but at least been working and in jobs and doing stuff, and is looking for something else in their life. And so mid 20s to 45. If you're well on in your career and you recognize that you have a sedentary lifestyle, that you're not healthy, that you're not you're just not implementing the good habits in your life to keep you healthy, and you're feeling that strain, you're feeling that like
Yeah.
misalignment, where you shouldn't be smoking and you're smoking, that you shouldn't be sitting for 8 hours a day without having meaningful breaks and like a walk
Yeah.
outside, and like, or you feel stressed and you're like, oh man, I feel stressed and I don't know what to do. And Emory's sitting here with like a wealth of mindfulness and meditation training, which by the way, I meditated 3 times last week. So I'm feeling awesome. So, I thought about doing 2 more, but not long enough for it to be a meditation. And then I'm just kidding. I just forgot the other 2 days. But in any event, no, I'm trying to speak to people that have this sense of like, I'm not as healthy as I should be. I'm not making the
Yeah,
decisions that I want to be
yeah.
making. I'm not living up to the person that I think I am.
We're
And
adults who are, in some sense, have it all. We're professional, um, succeeding to some extent, generally achieving, educated, making money, doing the right things, but still just lacking that spark. Not
yeah,
making this, not having that
it,
connection.
yeah, Durkheim would say anemia, somebody who's experiencing the stress of society upon you and the ennui that comes with it. Not to use any too big words, but yeah, somebody who's a little bored with life. There we go. Let's bring it back down. I'm sorry.
No, no, that's good.
But no, also if you're feeling depressed, if you have general anxiety, if you have like an issue with mental health, like we want to build a community that you're both welcome in and that you'll find good resources to go through, that you won't, I'm gonna stop like trash talking David Wolf. I don't want this to be about negative, but where you don't like jump into a community of somebody who's giving you like a lot of positivity that is really harmful. you
Mhm.
know, like a positive mental attitude is very helpful and very healthy, but a positive mental attitude does not fix your physical health or your mental health. It is just something that you should do to make your life better. you
It's
know
one part of the whole overall system of
yes.
yeah, a
yes.
consistent, cohesive community that we're trying to
Yes.
build that has healthy diet, that has healthy accountability, that has a healthy mindsets that supports that supports each other in achieving diet and career goals and in becoming better and in
Yeah.
being
And that
better.
yeah, that gets to the wellness part, which is, wellness is not one thing. Like if you eat one healthy meal, you don't achieve wellness. You don't get like a wellness bonus. If you meditate 5 times, you don't get, your health and wellness bonus.
A
Because
merit
if you meditate,
badge.
yeah, if you meditate 10 times, for a week and a half, and then you spend 3 or 4 days really, really stressed with your body full of cortisol, you will still experience the health effects that come with that, the lowered immune system, the higher risk of heart disease and those sorts of things. So you have to put these things in your life as habits, and they're, what you were saying, which is, long term, long term. So
Yeah. Unfortunately, none of what we're talking about is easy. We don't do quick fixes here, one bite at a time. Eating an elephant is a big, big thing. All of these things, making any sort of real meaningful change in your life is hard. And it's a commitment that takes time. And there are no easy fixes, quick magic bullets, so to speak. You have to put in the time over time, and that's starting small, one step, one bite at a time, changing your habits, learning that you can have better habits, and then changing your wherever you start, whether it's with diet or with health or with wellness, but eventually merging them all together over time, over years of
and when you make
consistent
yeah,
growth.
consistent small changes makes for big interpersonal growth. And a lot of people there's a lot of places on the internet you can go that are going to tell you they're going to fix everything in you in a quick 2-week, 3-week program. You're going to do a 3-week, or you're going to do
That's
a
not new to the internet, but yeah, yeah.
you're going to do a 3-day juice cleanse, and you're going to lose 30 pounds, and every problem in your life is going to go away. And it doesn't work like that. And that was what happened to me when I was in my 20s. Is I found a bunch of stuff that really left me feeling more empty and less able to cope with some of the things that I was dealing with. And like, bad coping strategies are still coping strategies. So I would try a new and broken system, get rid of all my old coping mechanisms, and the new unbroken system would be broken. And then I'd go back to all of my bad coping strategies, oftentimes worse off for having done whatever it was that I was,
Yep.
not doing. And at the end of the day, we're social creatures. We need community, we need friends, we need family, we need, a good healthy diet, we need sunshine, we need walks, we need a lifestyle that's not sedentary. So anyhow, we're going to talk all about that, but specifically for today's episode,
For the meat of the episode, we're talking about community. Where you started with that last little monologue is that we're social creatures. We have to do these things together. And we're both Americans. Some of our audience is obviously not American, maybe most of it. Hopefully one day. The world is very big, full of amazing people, amazing cultures, amazing languages and foods and life. But we were born in the United States, raised in this American culture. And one of this American myths is that you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps, that you can become a billionaire on your own, that you can become the next Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates if you just work hard enough. And that's not true.
if you work hard and it's because of your merit that you get there. That's the one that bothers me the most, is like, America is a meritocracy. And that is why the majority of people who are rich in America are some of the smartest and most capable people, who also just happen to have had a lot of generational wealth.
That was a heavy dose of sarcasm. But yes, absolutely. It's that fiction that we're a meritocracy, that if you try hard enough, if you get lucky in the right times, if you are scrappy enough and you fight every day, then you're going to make it. And individuality like that is a lie. It does not exist. I know that's a strong statement. I try to avoid those. But everything we do as human beings, everything we've ever accomplished as a species, everything we do as individuals is born of groups of at least two. We're born from a mother and a father. We have groups of everything that we do, even if they're not direct influences like they are in many of these stories that we'll talk a little bit more about here in a second. We're influenced by our friends, our family, our teachers, our stories, our enemies. All of these things impact us and directly change the way that we're thinking and looking at the world and looking at the problems that we want to solve. And so as you're going through changing your diet or your mindfulness, your health, and if you're looking at things, it's like, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm the only person in the world that's had these problems. When I was depressed, this was something that went through my mind many times. Is, no one can understand me. I'm the only person that's ever felt this way, all these different things. That's one example. It's different for different people, but by and large, other people have experienced the things that we do, and we do these things, and we can learn from other people, whether we want to or not. That's the way our brain works, is that we learn from the people around us. But then there's people like Jeff Bezos starting Amazon in his garage at 30, after having been a major player on Wall Street, and then starts selling books from his garage and receives an investment from his parents of $250,000. That's not bootstraps. That's a great story. That's great marketing. I'm in marketing. I love telling stories. That's a great story. It's a much better story than the one where you just come from relatively well-off, stable life with good connections and good education and these things. But it's not, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and became a billionaire. And
well, I mean,
way.
it's having $250,000 bootstraps. I mean,
yeah. And again, this is I think in 1990. So
yeah, it's
inflation,
also,
it's much more money than that is
yeah,
now in 2020.
well, and it's also having like a network of people part of your bootstraps. It's also having like, you know, all of the combined like resources of like the human capital of like having that education, having that network, having those parents, having that blah 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 blah. You talked about Jeff Bezos. I want to mention Bill Gates, because
Yes,
I've been
yes.
on a Bill Gates bashing tour. I was trying to do some alliteration there. Bill bashing tour. That's what we'll go. But specifically Bill Gates. Bill Gates did something recently that really, really, really personally offended my sense of morality, which was he had the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which controls a sizable amount of endowments to colleges and such, and he used the Bill and Gates Melinda Foundation to pressure Oxford to develop the AstraZeneca. Is that, am I pronouncing that correctly? Anyhow, call me out if I'm not. The AstraZeneca vaccine. They were going to develop that open source, and instead of it being open source, they developed it privately to maximize the amount of money that they could make. Bill Gates' reasoning on this is making more money puts more money into vaccines. Having companies that put more money into vaccines means collectively we'll have more vaccines. More vaccines mean more people have access to that life-saving technology. However, the counter argument to that is it's publicly
India.
funded money that we put into, well, also India not having access to the vaccine, and tons of the world's poorest countries not having the vaccine. But the biggest argument I have against this is really, really, really like pretty cut rate simple, which is the public paid almost $8 billion for all of the vaccines that we developed. And those companies
This
are
is
now,
just in the US or worldwide?
this is worldwide. Just
Yeah.
in the US, I think we paid a little under 5 billion, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. But in any event, we paid billions for this research. Now, we then turned around and paid the company to give us the vaccine that they made with the money that we spent. So the taxpayer paid for the vaccine twice. So to get the company to do the vaccine, which then they didn't share any of the technology they used, they didn't share any of the resources that they used, they didn't share any of the methods and the testing. All of that's proprietary, which that's fine. It's fine that it's proprietary, but it's a problem when the public pays for that and it stays proprietary. And so then we turn around and we paid for it again. And hey, I'm really happy we have this life-saving technology. I'm really happy. It's fine for people to make money on it. I'm not like against people making money off vaccines.
But now is the time we need to use it. We need to have vaccines for people.
Yeah, but
all
not
over the
having it
world.
be open source is
Yeah.
just obscene. It is just obscene. And Bill Gates, Microsoft has struggled for hundreds of millions of dollars of struggle with bugs, security issues, and huge flaws, all of which none of those exist on Linux in the same scale and at the same cost, because Linux is a good open source platform, where Microsoft is now finally using Linux in their products because they're recognizing the value of open source. But Bill Gates, being the old out of touch person that he is, can't realize that. Bill Gates also bootstrap person.
Tell us about his bootstraps. Tell us about Bill Gates' bootstraps.
So I know a lot about Bill Gates's horrible actions in being a evil capitalist monopoly person. So and that's out of the scope of what we're talking about right now. But very simply put, Bill Gates had extremely powerful parents. His parents were basically responsible for saving Starbucks. His dad was one of the highest powered attorneys in Seattle. I forget all of the details for his mom, but she's super well accomplished. Go ahead.
Well, at the one of the key turning points that she brought in was that she was on the board for United Way, which is a massive nonprofit. One of the people also on that board with her was one of the board members for IBM.
Yeah, got that super big, crucial deal.
Yeah, that allowed small, tiny little Microsoft to write the operating system for what was at the time, I think, the world's biggest computer company.
Bootstraps, though. Bootstraps.
So yeah, in Chinese, there's a word guanxi, That means your relationships. Do you have guanxi? Do you know the people you need to know to solve the problems that you have? And Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, they've got guanxi. And that is a much more accurate and maybe less interesting story than bootstraps. But that is the truth. That is the reality of their success. But again, of course, in part, different things. They're both smart people who made good decisions at certain times and have controlled their companies to do things, some of which are not good. But that's a different subject.
Bill Gates did exactly what he should have done to maximize the amount of profit that he made. But, at the same time, that's because we had, very ineffective government, accountability for those corporations. So in any event, beyond the scope of what we should be talking about. Now, the thing that really bothers me about this is that we have these guys like Bill Gates, like Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs takes up this cultural consciousness of like these geniuses, these brilliant people. Like Bill Gates is people are like, oh, he's a genius. Steve Jobs is like a genius. I hope I could be, a leader like him. And the people who worked for him consistently talk about it. Dysfunctional culture, someone who yelled and screamed, someone who was very, very, very difficult to work with. And they want to talk about people then turn around and be like, well, if it wasn't for that amount of pressure, then people wouldn't have achieved that high. But you look at the reality, which is a bunch of other corporations produced touchscreen phones. A bunch of other corporations are producing, I love Macs. I'm using a Mac right now. I like Apple as a company, but a whole bunch of other corporations that don't have that level of dysfunction are also producing technologies that are equivalent, if not better, in many respects. And on top of that, Steve Jobs was so dysfunctional, they fired him. Like,
and then they brought him back. I mean, so their point being is that there are a lot of these big things, these big stories have a lot of different threads. And when we simplify these stories, when we simplify the genius story, the great man story, the empire government story, they get narrowed down into something that's not completely true, that's not as accurate. And we do that with ourselves as well. When we're telling our personal story of who am I, what am I facing, what are these challenges at work, whether I'm moving or trying a new diet, starting to implement a new workout, or trying to meditate more, doing these different things is how we tell our story. And often I think we simplify those first, problematic is that we do it individually. We say, okay, I'm doing this on my own. So that's why it's so important to, whether you're listening to the podcast and starting to talk to other people about things, if you're on a community online, a chat room, different things, these are really essential parts of our human growth. Or if you're in a gym or different real community or in real life RL communities, these are so important. But then also that that when we're telling those stories about our own self, our own personal who we are, what we're facing, that we're simplifying them, and in a way that is leaving out a lot of the context, leaving out a lot of the good things when they're bad stories, maybe leaving out a lot of the good things or a lot of the bad things when they're good stories about who we are as a person. And as we build a community, as we grow, we have to face all of that. And that's sort of the call out corner perspective, is that we have to see the problems in order to address them. We have to understand what we're facing in order to deal with it. And we have to do that personally, but then we also have to surround ourselves with people that do the same thing, and then that reinforce it when we make mistakes, that push us and tease us when we're not being the person that we want to be, when we're not maintaining the goals that we set for ourselves, but then also that when they see that we really tried and did our best and still failed, because that's going to happen necessarily in life, that then they support us and pick us back up, and that we do the same for each other when we need it. And that's the beauty of human life, of social creatures.
Yeah, to the effect of that community thing, I think one of the things that I've been putting off on this little endeavor is doing all the things on social media and all of the kind of building out that side of our website. So I will say on air. Um, I'll do the social media
A
stuff.
public goal.
I'm not gonna get. Yeah, no. A public goal is. I think that it's really important to have, because one of the things that happened just recently was I went to a Vegans of Beijing meeting, and I got looped into like 5 or 6 vegan chat groups, and they've been a pretty positive like thing. I see people's posts. I see people posting about, vegetarian or vegan restaurants, and I see that it's a vibrant, community. It's people that some of them are like me, some of them are not like me, but some of them are pretty cool people. And it's always good to find people that you share values with, that you share similar motivations with. And so that's something that it was cool to get looped into. So one of our stated goals for one
One
bite
bite
at
at a
a
time.
time is to create that community. So I'll go ahead and say, yeah, we'll have a Facebook up, we'll make a WeChat group, we'll get all we'll get all of those boxes checked for having a social media presence. And then I would say two of the really big things that have helped me, and this is something that we'll put out there, is just we'll talk about it a little, and then we'll figure out an actual like tech solution for it later. Two of the things that have really helped me were like having a routine. And this was like when I moved, my routine got messed up, which then meant that I just felt really disjointed, and like I didn't really know what was going on. So I just ended up being like really, really, really hungry one day. And I was like, well, we're moving, the fridge is empty, I'm starving, I need some food. And then it was like, my first thought wasn't where's the closest vegetarian dish that I can get. It was like, where's food?
I just need
And
to eat right now. If I
yeah,
don't eat, I'm going to die.
yeah. And then I'm not gonna blame my girlfriend, but we were going somewhere, and I was like, yeah, I'm not eating meat, and she was like, well, that's really inconvenient. And I was like, okay, I'm eating meat tonight then. um and it's just like, if I haven't planned or I haven't made any accommodations for myself, then I'm kind of the Chinese word shui guo, like putting that responsibility on her. And like,
Mhm.
she's not responsible for my
Sure.
lifestyle choices. So, and I didn't want that to be something that, gave us any friction. So,
Yep. Yep.
and those things, that's also why it's like, for me, feeling guilty isn't particularly useful. It's more like, okay, now let's, like, here's the places we failed. Let's diagnose, engage, make a plan, and then do that. Um, so in any event, having community works for people. We want to help build that. So I'll start building that. What's been your, like, trying to find a good way to phrase the question here, but like for you, Emery, what's been the biggest changes in your life that have come from having like a positive community, or having, or been, or like, do you have that now? Is that something you're looking for? Like,
Well, yes, I mean, that's something we're trying to build here, obviously, but I think I've always been lucky enough to have great friends, growing up. We did move a few times, but I remember having fairly good friend groups wherever we went. But what are the values of good community? I mean, uh, growing up, I even while I was atheist, or even after I was atheist, I would go to youth group, go to church, to be with community, to be around good people who had, even if I didn't agree with where their morals came from necessarily, I agreed with.
Did you
Uh,
skip the angry atheist phase?
oh no, 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 no. I did not skip that phase,
Okay.
but I nonetheless, there were places we could go with nice, professional adults who could teach us things that were patient, and we would have fun and eat pizza and watch movies and sing and do activities together. And these are essential human features that religion takes great advantage of, has used for a very long time effectively. But it's just one example of, oh, this is a really great community that provided some stability for me. It wasn't sustainable because it wasn't consistent with my values overall, and that's consistency is something we'll have to talk about more going forward. But with that community, with teachers, with most recently finally going vegan was having a friend who was already vegan, was in these Vegans of Beijing group that we're both now part of, that I was just like, hey, my values are that I want to do this. Every time you see me, give me hell. Make sure that I am committed to this. Make sure that if I say, oh, I'm tired, if I make excuses, that you call me out, that you pressure me on this, until one day, like, I didn't do it I didn't finally make the switch because I got tired of being bullied by the person I pushed to bully me. But was that I started to feel out and join that community that had the same values, that was pushing me to do the things that I wanted. So that's such a big question. There's so many examples there of, it's just, community is everything to human
Yeah.
beings.
I
And
remember
it's so basic that we have to, it's almost too big to talk about, but we have to try and talk about it because it's so essential to everything that we do.
So, you know about my story of growing up in church, and I remember having people say things to me in church and just being like, "These people are awful to me. Like, I don't like the way I get treated." And then I remember when the military was also an organization where I was like around people, and I was just like I remember like one of the guys I was friends with, we were at a bar drinking, and he just came by and he just like hit me in the crotch like really hard, just like nut checked me. Yeah. And I was just like, bro, like, you realize that's like sexual assault. Like, I don't like it when you do that. And he literally just like he just literally yelled it a homophobic slur at me, and I was just like, I remember at the time like just being like, because we were in Florida at that time, and like Florida, there's no like, there's not really straight bars and gay bars. There's like expressly gay bars and mixed bars. And if you get out of Tampa, it's a little different. But in Tampa, that's kind of the party scene. But he just yelled that slur, and I remember like looking and seeing like multiple people who were like clearly homosexuals just being like what the hell just happened? And me just feeling like, this is somebody I'm friends with. Like, what the heck? And then I remember getting out of the military and being in college and running into these people who were working at the co-op. And the co-op is in Kentucky, is this little like really hippie vegan, like mostly vegetarian, mostly vegan, and it's a really really interesting, cool little community in Kentucky. And I just remember being like, oh, these people are really nice. These people are really kind. These people are really compassionate. And that, and then while I was in college, there was a couple of people who were like really activist on like feminist issues. And I remember talking to them and being like, I was not a feminist when I was like first in college. I was fresh out of the military. But I remember debating them and like as I'm talking to them being like, I really wish I could be friends with this person. Like, like this is a kind person. This is someone who has compassion. This is someone who like has values that like make me feel safe and comfortable and good about
These are
myself,
values that I
about
want to have. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But it's like, you know, at the time I think I was arguing like gay people shouldn't get married or something because I was stuck on my own BS. But I was just like, but at the same time, like I want to be compassionate. I want to be loving to people. I'm not a mean person. I'm not like, you know, I'm someone who wants to be kind. Um, yeah, I just remember that and having a community that was devoid of that and having friends that were really, really, really toxic and horrible. And you know that's been kind of like a through line to like things that have helped me make better decisions is like who's compassionate, who's kind, who's helping me be kind to myself because I tend to be like kind of hard on myself a lot of
Yeah.
times. You know, and it's like being accountable and recognizing the things that you're doing wrong make you a better person. And what strikes me with like a lot of conservative values, with a lot of Christian values, because like the concept of sin should be similar to the concept of accountability,
Mhm.
but it couldn't be farther from that. You know, because like ultimately these people's like righteousness and like their like moral compass enables them to be cruel to other people, which is terrifying and bad for the world. So I'm sorry, that was a very, very long way of saying build a community of kind and compassionate people who practice non-judgment and who are like have, you know, have those concepts of like mindfulness. So
Yeah. Yeah.
next time I'll tell shorter stories. I'm sorry.
No, there you go, being hard on yourself again. Uh, no, it's you're highlighting a very important part of like community being so essential to us to who we are as individuals, as a species, is something we have to be mindful of because if we end up in the wrong communities, it's very, very harmful. And so we want to be uh, mindful of, as we started out talking here, of who we're telling our goals to, knowing why we're telling this person, why we respect them, and what it is that we value. And these are uh, big things. We're talking about community, but then it's also this sort of why we're going to do a mindfulness moment here in a little bit of why we start to be mindful about things is that we have to recognize who we are and what we want and what's important to us so that we can recognize that in the people around us, to recognize that they are reflecting the values that we want to encourage us to be better, to do better, to leave the world better, and not to get worse or to make things worse, to be more judgmental or problematic. And so being mindful of that as we build the community and then back into starting to change our own habits of making the small goals, whether it's a diet goal or a fitness goal or a routine, just making your bed in the morning,
Yeah.
just these little things.
Just
And
like
so it's all connected. It's this full, cohesive, unified narrative.
yeah, a lot of what attracts people to being religious is this like idea of like you're not good enough, you know, and this is what's going to fix it. And a lot of people, this kind of gets back to what we were talking about in the call out corner, but like a lot of people have that feeling of like inadequacy, of not feeling like they're good enough or feeling like something's wrong with them or feeling like they need to do better. And setting goals to achieve the things that you want to do is the way out of that feeling. You know, like setting a goal, reaching your goal, it really does help you get out of that goal. And like the one thing I will say is like I do want to impose values. You know, there are values in this world that are just like this is the right thing to do. Being kind, being compassionate, but it's not a dogma. And like that's something that like I think is really valuable, which is like when you replace like a religious mindset that is very dogmatic and very like unforgiving and very harsh with with a different value system that's not as dogmatic, it genuinely improves your life. I mean, I know you've gone through that journey,
Well,
but
and if you are and knowing that if you are religious, or knowing that why you're religious, or that the community you're a part of is also in line with the values that it espouses or that you still want. Recognizing, learning to set these goals, recognizing maybe it's your way out of religion, maybe you still want to be a part of your religion, maybe it's
oh,
aligned with your personal
yeah,
values.
I definitely want to say that, like, I have a lot of friends who are still Christian. I have a lot of people on Facebook that I follow. I read I read their Facebook updates. I love what they have to say. They're kind, they're compassionate, and they are living that from, from the teachings of Jesus that they take inspiration from, you
Yep.
know. And so I'm not saying sorry, I definitely poorly phrased what I was saying there. So, but yeah, that kindness and compassion and not dogma. But yeah, there is some places in religion you can go that are heavily dogmatic and scary, and steer yourself towards the kindness and the compassion.
Yeah. All you need is love. Do, do, do.
Yeah. There's this wonderful documentary I saw, and it's oh no, I forgot
Oh,
the
you're
name.
doing it again.
Forgot the name. We're gonna this is it to be continued for next episode.
A reminder to our listeners and our watchers that we loosely script this, we structure it out, but it's an ongoing conversation. And so the idea isn't that we're reading off a script here, it's that we're having a conversation. We're getting to know each other better. We're learning about these things with you. We're growing on things. Yes, we have some experience in health and wellness. Yes, we've hopefully been through things and have some stuff that we can teach, but being part of being a teacher is that we're learning together. And so this is an ongoing conversation. We're going to have these moments. That's okay. We're building the community together, laughing together, getting
this
better, one
this
bite
is
at a
why
time.
this is why I forgot the name of it, because I remember thinking, oh yeah, the name was really weird. So the name of it is Marjo. And I had previously dropped my VPN to make sure that I had a good signal, and I had to turn my VPN on there. So if you lost signal, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's Marjo, and it was 1972. This guy was a child preacher. He was like 5 and 6. He would memorize his sermons. He would do this wonderful delivery, and his dad was an evangelicist, and he talked about that people genuinely felt good in these services. They felt good, and he made them feel good, and he liked that he made them feel good. But then over time, he couldn't ignore the fact that his sermons included an enormous amount of guilt, an enormous amount of judgment, and that it wasn't healthy. And he said, if I could find a way to give people this feeling of happiness, this feeling of release, getting away from their day-to-day lives and feeling good, if I could do that without the guilt, then this would be a good thing. And he's like, but I'm struggling with that. I can't find a way to do that. And like the film doesn't really resolve that like central issue. And like I don't have an answer for it either. I have Christians who I'm dear friends with, and one of my good friends on Facebook, he just got kicked out of a church because he identifies as bisexual, and he's married, and he doesn't cheat on his wife, but he identifies as bisexual, and they were like, you can't identify as bisexual and be a part of this church. Like, yeah. And they kicked him out. I mean, it's in Kentucky. It's a very fundamentalist region of the Bible Belt. Um, so, but you know, he's still a good Christian. He still believes in it. And I respect that. Like I never ever will argue with him about his faith. I'll argue with him about, like, cuz he was like, yeah, I think it was really wrong for them to do that. And I was like, have you read the Bible?
Well, I mean, it depends on which part you're reading and what you're talking about, but
Exactly. Yeah.
and that's where we're depending on what we're talking about at time. We're getting back to this. We're simplifying stories. We're making things out to be more black and white than they are the complexities of life. That how do we give people a feeling they're feeling good, they're getting something that they want, but it also comes with this dose of, this is a fundamental human question that we've been tackling for a long time, that religions and entertainment and mindfulness and doctors and just human beings since time immemorial have been struggling with. So
we all want status.
yeah,
We all want to
and
feel valid.
yeah, but as we're setting goals, as we're changing ourselves to change the world, as we're tackling things one bite at a time, we need to be mindful of ourselves and what we're looking for. We need to make those goals in align with who we are, who we want to be. We need to write them down, and then we need to tell someone, preferably more than one person, but at least one person who we respect and value their opinion, to help keep us accountable. And then find a larger community with that support to learn new methods of whether you're cooking new foods or doing different workouts, or different mindfulness activities, or different ways to sew or play soccer or whatever. You learn from other people, but then also to support you and to build that
Well,
community that's so essential
and
to
it also,
everything we do.
yeah, having a community also helps to build that intrinsic motivation for what you're doing, because like your introduction to health and wellness may be, I'm looking for a diet, and somehow you come upon, some of the blog posts that are forthcoming, and you're like, oh, this guy says that this diet's not a good idea. He says, actually, it's better for me to just replace a couple of meals with this and to try to start a wellness routine, and your wellness routine may be one tiny step, but then 3 years later, you may look in the mirror and be like, oh, I achieved all my goals. Like, I'm doing awesome. Or 6 months later, you may have achieved all your goals. What I promise you is 1 month, you won't have achieved all your goals unless your goal is to lose 2-3 pounds, or you won't have achieved them safely. And so, like, your goals also need, you need a community to, one, like, tell other people your goals so that you can get some feedback on your goals, because sometimes people have goals and you'll tell someone and they'll be like, um is that really what you want to do? Like,
Is that a good idea?
yeah, are you sure that that's what you want to do? Like, when I was doing personal training, this guy came in, he was a high schooler, and he was like, I want to look like this bodybuilder. And the bodybuilder was Ronnie Coleman. And this guy was like a fairly skinny, like average looking, like high
High
schooler.
school.
And I was, yeah. And I was like, okay, that's cool. That's cool. Let's show you who Ronnie Coleman is right now. He uses crutches to get around because his lower back doesn't work. He's in a ton of pain. He has surgeries every couple of months. And he did a massive amount of steroids to get there. And here's what he had to eat. I showed him his meals. I showed him the steroids. I showed him the cost. And he was like, okay, I just want to work out and get stronger. And I'm like, hey, there we go.
Reasonable goals. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So,
And maybe we didn't touch on that explicitly enough. It's in the name of our channel, one bite at a time. The goals that you're setting, they've got to be reasonable. Before you write them down, before you tell other people about them, they've got to be reasonable. I usually recommend setting the bar lower so that you can achieve more. Whether you want to do one push-up in the morning, then you're already on the ground and you do 5, or you do 10, or you do 40. The goal is one push-up every morning, 5 days a week or something. Allowing that margin of error 5 days a week for most things. For human error, we make mistakes, we miss time. So you get out of bed, first thing, you just make your bed. These very little things that we can do to start to set our goals and to build off of that. Not to become Ronnie Coleman, but to just get stronger and feel better. So uh, I think that's a pretty good for today.
Oh
What do you
man, I
think,
had like
Josh?
5 more stories I wanted to tell.
I know, I know.
Yeah, I think the key takeaways there are, set reasonable goals, write your goal down, find someone who you respect to, talk to your goal about with, to mentor you, and get into a community, and then your likelihood of success will go up and up and up.
Yep.
So I'm good there. So we want to move into the mindfulness moment.
Yeah, that's as always. Thank you for joining us. This is one bite at a time. For our mindfulness moment at the end of the episode, you're welcome to skip this if you're busy, if you have other things to go on, but we encourage you not to. It's helpful, it's valuable. It is building these skills, mindfulness skills of sensory clarity, of concentration, and applying equanimity to these things, these three aspects of what is called unified mindfulness. We've talked a little bit about. Um, Feel free to join us. Feel free to sign off if you want, but we'll do a 5-minute mindful moment here. In the last 2 episodes, we talked about see, hear, and feel. The first episode, we talked about see. The last episode, we did hear. Today, we're going to talk about feel. And so as we're sitting today, or as you're standing, wherever you are, if you're walking and listening, if you're on the subway, if you're on the bus, if you're listening in your car, don't close your eyes, obviously. But practicing what you're feeling, whether that's external pain, as you pinch your fingertips, or you feel your feet or your butt on the floor, or the motion of the vehicle you're in, or internal hunger, maybe internal pain or discomfort, frustration, getting distracted. My mind is supposed to be empty. That's what meditation is. I can't do this. Is feel, and then return to your breath. So I'll set a timer for 5 minutes, and we'll do our mindful moment here, and we'll call it a day. So just settling in, closing your eyes if you can. You can keep them open if you'd like, but just focusing on your breath, feeling your feet on the floor, maintaining a good posture, again, with your back straight, being intentional about being mindful. And this is a practice. We're building skills here. And when you recognize that you're feeling something physical, your feet or your butt or your skin, a breeze, or you're feeling something emotional or hunger or pain inside, recognize that, say, feel, and return to your breath. And when you recognize that you're feeling something again, note it, feel. So I'll just practice that for a few minutes. And as your mind gets sucked away to thinking about something, what you're going to do after this, or what you were doing before, whenever you recognize that you're thinking, recognize somewhere in there a feeling, just note it, feel, and return to your breath. again, maybe it's physical, an itch or a breeze on your skin. Maybe it's emotional, gratitude, frustration, whatever it is, feel. Turn to your breath. And remember, today we're just practicing feel. So while it's good if you remember and you're noting see or hear as well, try to focus this time and just feel. Just those moments, that physical, emotional, internal, external feelings, and note them, feel, and return to breath. And that's 5 minutes. That's our mindful moment. Thank you once again for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching, subscribe. If you're listening, subscribe. Give us a like, share. Otherwise,
Send me comments to tell me to do stuff.
give us that feedback for next episode's call out corner. But join us in building this community and in sharing what we've learned and in teaching us new things so that together we can be better and make a better world. That's one bite at a time. If you want to go fast, or you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far,
Wait,
go together.
Is this
Go
the one I'm
together.
supposed to do?
That's
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
we want to build community here, guys. We really do want to go far together here. I'm not familiar with that idiom that you've used twice
Really?
there.
Oh, learning something new every day. So thank you, everyone. I'm Emory.
And thank you guys so much for being with us. Take care. Until next time. And we're not recording anymore.